Scorpio, there is a quiet shift happening around you right now, even if your outer life still looks the same. You can feel it in the way your chest tightens before you talk to certain people, in the way your mind drifts toward the future without knowing why, in the way your spirit is both tired and strangely hopeful at the same time. You're not imagining this. Your season is changing, even if you can't yet see the full picture. For a long time, it has felt like you were walking through a long corridor with no windows, guided only by instinct and sheer survival. But in the coming days, tiny cracks of light begin to appear along the walls. This is not a random phase or just another week. This is a spiritual turning point, where God is quietly preparing blessings that match the depth of everything you've survived. You're not being reset back to zero. You're being shifted into a completely different dimension of how life meets you, responds to you, and honors you. The first blessing forming around you is a deep reconciliation with your own heart. You have carried stories, memories, and disappointments that were never fully processed, only stored in hidden drawers inside your soul. There were moments where you said, "It's fine, I'm over it," not because you truly were, but because you had no time or space to fall apart. You learned to keep functioning with pieces of your heart missing, pretending that moving on and healing were the same thing. In the coming days, God is gently guiding you into a season where your past can finally loosen its grip. Expect old memories to surface, not to torture you, but to be seen with new eyes. You may find yourself suddenly understanding why something had to happen the way it did. You may feel a wave of compassion for the version of you who endured what they did with the tools they had. This is not weakness, this is release. Forgiveness will not always arrive as a big dramatic moment. Sometimes it's the quiet recognition that you no longer want to keep drinking poison just to prove how deeply you were hurt. With that emotional detox comes the second blessing, a heightened spiritual awareness that feels like someone turned up the volume on your intuition. Scorpio, you were born with a radar that rarely fails, but life has forced you at times to mute it, to ignore what you felt in your bones because logic, obligation, or fear told you to stay. In the coming days, that inner radar begins to recalibrate. You will notice more patterns in the words people use, in the timing of events, in the coincidences that keep repeating. A sentence overheard at the right moment, a number you keep seeing, a song that plays exactly when your heart is asking a question. These are not accidents. This is God answering you through the subtle language of the everyday world. You'll sense when someone's smile doesn't match their energy, when an offer that seems perfect on paper carries a strange weight, when a door that looks promising feels heavy to step through. Your task is not to over-explain this sensitivity to others. Your task is to honor it, even if you're the only one who understands why you're saying yes or no. As your inner vision sharpens, the third blessing begins to unfold in the realm of your material life. For a long time, you've known what it feels like to give more than you receive, to work harder than people realize, to be the one holding everything together in the background. Maybe there were phases where money seemed to disappear faster than it arrived, where effort and reward never quite matched, where you started to believe that barely enough was your permanent state. The coming days bring an energetic shift around provision. This doesn't mean a lottery ticket falls from the sky or everything changes overnight, but it does mean that new channels of support begin to reveal themselves. A delayed payment finally clearing. An idea for a side project that lights you up instead of draining you. a conversation that opens a door to collaboration when you least expect it. These are not random strokes of luck. They are responses to the seeds you've been planting in the dark for years. God is not just sending more, He is sending better, opportunities that align with your growth instead of trapping you in old versions of scarcity. The fourth blessing is about the kind of people who will begin to orbit your life. Scorpio, you have met your share of shapeshifters, people who say the right things but never follow through, who love your light but quietly fear your power, who feed on your depth without offering depth back. That chapter is closing. As your energy stabilizes and your boundaries become clearer, God starts sending connections that feel very different. You may meet someone who speaks to your soul in a way that feels strangely familiar. You may reconnect with a person you once undervalued or didn't notice properly, now seeing that their presence feels like rest rather than performance. These could be friends, mentors, partners, or even online communities where your soul feels genuinely understood. The blessing here is not just having people around you, it's having the right people around you. Those who don't ask you to shrink, those who don't disappear when you're not entertaining them, those who can sit with your silence as comfortably as with your laughter. And sometimes the blessing is also in who leaves. When someone exits your life now, trust that it is part of the clearing needed to make room for these aligned souls. Alongside this relational realignment, the fifth blessing arriving in your field is a clearer sense of direction. You've known for a long time that you are not built for a life of surface-level existence. You can't pretend that mindless repetition satisfies you. You crave movement with meaning, work that feels like it matters, choices that echo in your spirit. Yet there have been seasons where your path felt foggy, where you moved forward out of duty rather than conviction. In the coming days, expect small but significant moments of clarity to appear. A task you used to tolerate suddenly feels unbearable. A forgotten dream returns to your mind, not as a fantasy, but as a quiet instruction. A skill you almost abandoned starts to feel alive again. God is not dropping a fully formed life blueprint in your lap. He's nudging you with little lights along the way, asking, will you trust this next step? Your purpose may not arrive as a grand announcement, but you will feel the difference between what drains you and what animates you. That difference is sacred information. Following it is how you gradually walk into the life you were always meant to live. The sixth blessing touches your body and your energy. Scorpio, you've often pushed yourself through fatigue, forcing your spirit to keep going even when your nervous system was begging for rest. You might have normalized constant exhaustion, or accepted that waking up heavy is just part of being an adult in this world. But your body has been faithfully carrying the emotional weight for years, and now God is inviting you into a gentler agreement with yourself. In the coming days, you may feel suddenly drawn to change small daily habits, drinking more water, going to bed earlier, stretching for 5 minutes, taking a walk instead of scrolling, putting your phone down before sleep. These shifts will seem minor, but they are actually spiritual acts disguised as self-care. Your body is a vessel for the blessings that are coming. It must be treated like an altar, not an afterthought. You might also feel a growing intolerance for spaces, foods, substances and rhythms that leave you foggy or numb. This is not you becoming too sensitive. This is your system recalibrating to hold more light, more clarity, more life force without burning out. Seventh, there is a blessing of protection strengthening around you that you may only fully notice in hindsight. Think back to moments where something didn't work out and you called it rejection. In the coming days, some of those memories will begin to reframe themselves in your mind, and you'll realize, I was being saved from something I couldn't see. Going forward, this protective hand over your life becomes more intentional. A plan might fall through at the last minute. Someone you were about to trust suddenly reveals a side of themselves that confirms your doubts. A path you were forcing yourself down starts to feel like walking through mud, while another option you kept ignoring begins to open with ease. When something blocks itself now, pause before trying to smash through the wall. Ask, is this resistance or is this mercy? God is not only blessing you with open doors, He is blessing you with clear no's that keep your future safe. Your role is not to outrun this protection, but to align with it, even when your ego is disappointed. Some of the greatest miracles in your next chapter will be the disasters you never had to live through. The eighth blessing, the one that ties all the others together, is a quiet but powerful restoration of your hope. Not the naive hope you had years ago, when you didn't yet know how cruel or unpredictable life could be, but a deeper, wiser hope that exists even after disappointment. There were nights where you wondered if the effort was worth it, if anyone really saw how hard you were trying, if God had placed you on mute. You learned how to function even when the light inside you felt dim. But in the days ahead, there will be moments, small at first, where a soft joy catches you off guard. You might laugh and realize you hadn't truly laughed in weeks. You might feel a wave of gratitude for something simple, like a quiet morning or a kind message, and notice it fills your chest instead of bouncing off your armor. You may even sense a strange certainty that something good is coming, without knowing why. This renewed hope is not a trick. It is the soul's way of saying, now we can receive. When hope returns, your energy field becomes magnetic in a different way. You stop moving like someone who expects everything to fall apart, and the universe responds by sending you experiences that match this new expectation of goodness. All these blessings are not separate events thrown randomly into your timeline. They are different expressions of the same truth. You have outgrown the season of merely surviving. God is not ignoring the depth of your pain. He is matching it with the depth of the transformation you're being prepared to live. Some of these blessings will arrive softly, almost unnoticed, like a gradual lifting of weight from your shoulders. Others may arrive more suddenly, like a door that opens so wide and so clearly that even your suspicious mind can't argue with it. Your responsibility is not to chase signs obsessively, but to stay present, to keep your heart just open enough that when the gift arrives, you don't send it away because it feels unfamiliar. You prayed for change, Scorpio, but change rarely shows up in comfortable forms. It shows up as conversations you didn't think you were ready for, decisions you've avoided making, endings that free your hands, and beginnings that ask you to trust more than you ever have. As these shifts unfold, there will also be tests. People from your old life might reappear carrying the same patterns, dressed in slightly softer words. Opportunities that look bright on the outside may still demand that you abandon yourself on the inside. Old habits will call you back when you're tired, because they want to convince you that safety and stagnation are the same thing. In those moments, remember, every blessing comes with a choice. God can place the table in front of you, but you decide whether to sit with what nourishes you or what uses you. Your no is just as sacred as your yes. Saying no to what no longer honors you is often the final key that unlocks the blessing you asked for months or years ago. It's not that you were never meant to receive, it's that you could not hold that blessing while still clinging to the thing that kept you small. So as you move through these coming days, Scorpio, walk with more awareness. Notice what feels lighter, even if it scares you. Notice what feels heavier, even if it looks impressive. Pay attention to the ideas that won't leave you alone, the invitations that feel peaceful instead of pressured, the people with whom your nervous system finally relaxes. Write down the little wins, the tiny shifts, the unexpected confirmations. This is how you train your mind to see that you are not stuck, you are in motion. And each blessing, no matter how small, is a brick in the bridge that is carrying you out of the old life and into the one you have been secretly longing for, but didn't quite know how to ask for in words. If this message touches something inside you, it's not by accident. There is a resonance that happens when the right words reach the right heart at the right time. Let this be that moment for you. Let it be a gentle reminder that you haven't been overlooked, that the delays you suffered are not the final verdict over your life, and that your tears were not wasted ink on a story that no one would ever read. They were prayers in a language only God fully understood. And now, slowly but surely, the answers to those prayers are beginning to take shape as real, tangible experiences. When you feel ready, you can anchor this shift by affirming it out loud, or even in the comments. My season is changing. I am ready to receive what is meant for me. Sometimes that simple declaration is enough to tilt your energy toward the future instead of the past. Before we close, let this be said with softness and honesty. These words are not a contract, they are a compass. This message is a symbolic reflection, a story your soul can lean into if it brings comfort and clarity. It is a spiritual possibility, not a rigid prediction. If what you've heard here resonates, keep the parts that strengthen you and let them inspire wiser choices, deeper faith, and kinder boundaries with yourself and others. If some parts don't fit your reality, you're always free to release them, like clouds passing across your sky, knowing that not every message is for every heart in the same way. What truly matters is the power already living within you, the capacity to transform, to choose, to rise again and again. The blessings being prepared for you are not here to replace your inner strength, but to meet it halfway. And as you walk forward, Scorpio, remember, you are not walking alone.